Okay, there we go. We should be good to go. Welcome back to another episode of This Week in PlayStation. I do apologize for the slight hum in the background. I do live in a one-bedroom apartment, so, everything is sort of in earshot. So where I actually have my setup is, in an open area right next to my kitchen. So you may be able to hear my dishwasher in the background, but hopefully it's not too loud. Bit of a slow week this week. It's going to be a pretty short one. I think we only have 2 topics to cover. Well, 3 topics, but one big topic and then like 2 smaller ones. One of the topics being Marvel Spider-Man 2. Some more information from Insomniac on that front. And then the other topic being Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We covered that a little bit last week regarding its size and the launch. And then the final topic would just be a PlayStation milestone, where PlayStation has now sold more home dedicated consoles than any other console manufacturer. So there's that. So yeah, let's get into it. Regarding Marvel Spider-Man 2, Insomniac had to come out again. I think in last week's episode we did discuss it a little bit, where fans were getting a little bit worried, asking like why they're not seeing trailers or promos or more of the game. But again, both Sony and Insomniac have reassured everyone that the game is still launching this year, and I think they're going to be a little bit more cautious and just do like a slow rollout like we saw them do with The Last of Us Part 1, where they only really started going into overdrive as they were nearing towards the launch. They didn't waste time doing like, months and months of like pre-build and hype and everything. Because again, you sort of want to gauge how you approach these things, because you don't want to put too much stuff out there. But then you also want to, keep the fans engaged. So I feel like with studios, it's always like a little tricky, like a middle ground, I would say, where you sort of have to just find that balance, because you also don't want to deprive people, because then people will think, there's stuff that you're hiding, like the game isn't ready, that kind of thing. So it's one of those. So yeah, Sony has given, they've said that Marvel Spider-Man 2 is still on track. So I think, given the fact that they never gave an official release date itself, I think it means that, okay, they know their timeline, but they're still sort of, judging when to perfectly time everything. So I think we will still see that come this year, and then I think Wolverine should be coming next year, if not the year after. I'm not too sure with specific information regarding Wolverine. And then moving on to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, we did cover that a little bit last week, with the file sizes being incredibly massive even for the disc versions. And then there was also a lot of trouble at launch for all the platforms, so not only PC, because normally PC tends to get the shit end of the stick where they get most of the launch problems these days, but it was also mad performance issues on console as well. Thankfully for me, I didn't experience too much of it. My playthrough will be going up on my YouTube channel on the 6th and 7th of May. You guys should be able to see that. I had to split it into 2, of course, because it was too big to have in one sitting. I forgot what the cap that YouTube has on my thing. So usually I try to cap my recordings to like 10 hours, 10 to 11 hours, and then 10 to 11 hours. So if something is like 15 hours, for example, I have to cut it into 2, even though it's slightly just over the mark. But yeah, my playthrough will be going up. I didn't experience many performance issues. There were like, a couple of stutters and that kind of thing, but just the regular that I would expect from a game at launch. But again, I've been lucky. I think I've mentioned this a lot of times. Even with the games that you guys have seen me play on the channel, I'm yet to ever have like a bad experience, except Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was the one game where I don't even have that playthrough up on the channel anymore, because there were so many bugs, so many issues. Whereas every other game has just had, where you experience like random glitches or just silly fun bugs that you come to expect, right? Nothing harmful. which again, of course, it's coming from my perspective. So some people would have had severe performance issues and like bugs that are causing them to like restart the game and that kind of thing. So when someone does come across those issues, it's definitely important to highlight them. So again, I think Respawn said they're working on it. They've released a few like patches and stuff like that to help people out. But again, it's a bit of a shame because the game itself, like Star Wars, they basically did the same thing I praised Horizon for, right? Where again, I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I never go into Star Wars games with like a deeper perspective or like expectation. I just enjoy the game for what it is. Same thing for Horizon, like I've said before. I'm not too bothered about the Horizon lore like the way I'm invested in like God of War, The Last of Us, that kind of thing. So with Horizon, I treat it the same way I treated Star Wars, where I just go in, enjoy the gameplay, enjoy the game for what it is, the story. And I think from my experience at least, they did everything better than Fallen Order. So as far as the sequel goes, there is actually literally nothing that I would critique them in terms of like they didn't improve and learn for their first experience. And again, shout out to EA. EA has been slowly redeeming themselves over the past few years. Although again, it's not directly EA because it's studios like Respawn and I forgot the studio that did It Takes Two and that kind of thing. But EA slowly, and the Dead Space remake again, but EA slowly, they've been doing some good releases, and that coming from the company that said single player games are dead, yeah, it's very surprising. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, the sequel, everything was better. It was much improved, aside from the performance issues. So again, I feel like it's one of those games where you can be like, oh, they ticked basically every box, but they botched the launch for some people. So, which again is a big issue because again, performance issues, it's nothing small. I only laugh about it now because again, it's one of those random situations where it's like a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. But again, it's a big issue where that'll affect the impression the people will have on a game. But I think ultimately, like I said, for those that were able to experience it in the form that it was supposed to be, and again, like as they continue to patch it and everything, I'm sure people will come around. And I think that's what the reviews have reflected so far. It got really good reviews because literally everything that people were saying was, oh, the game is damn near perfect except the performance issues. So it's something that Respawn will have to work on and get better at. But yeah, the final story this week, again, very slow news week, but figured, for consistency, we'll always do these. We'll keep covering them. And so PS5, Sony and PlayStation hit a milestone where PlayStation 5 again sold the highest units they've ever sold in a quarter, and well as their total record, where PlayStation has now sold more home dedicated consoles than any other manufacturer. And the reason why they keep specifying home dedicated is because if they put Nintendo into the equation, I think Nintendo still holds the record for the most actual, console sold when we start including handhelds. But Sony holds the record now for actual just units. So PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, and PS5. So doesn't include the PSP and the Vita, of course. But yeah, PlayStation sold over 500 million home consoles through the collective unit sales of first PlayStation up to PlayStation 5, not including the PSP and PS Vita, like I mentioned. And yeah, it beats everyone to that landmark. Xbox is nowhere close because Xbox only has 185 million home units, which is very surprising to me because again, like I've always said, and I don't say this as like a PlayStation fanboy. Of course, I play PlayStation, so that is my console of choice. But I don't think there's ever been a debate in terms of like who's bigger, PlayStation and Xbox, because I feel like Xbox has always been a North American thing. Because of course, me growing up in Zimbabwe and having traveled pretty much as I grew up as a kid, I traveled everywhere around the world apart from North America. And I feel like everyone else just plays PlayStation. And it's not really, again, it's not really like a tribal thing. I feel like PlayStation was always just more accessible, more, you know, with the first party games, that kind of thing. Whereas Xbox has just had a chokehold on the North American market. And that's where like majority of their sales come from. So they're big, absolutely massive in North America, but then they get bodied everywhere else across the world. And again, that reflects with the total sales, even though of course Xbox is younger, so there's PlayStation has time on them, but that gap is surprising. 500 million units to 185 million. I would not have guessed that. Especially because in recent generations, and especially the Xbox 360, I'm pretty sure that won the console war of that generation. But yeah, it's a good milestone for PlayStation. Onwards and upwards for the company. Like I've mentioned before, time and time again, I hope they continue to focus on single player story games, but also do their little balancing act as they start diving into multiplayer franchises. So they have both aspects, especially with COD potentially going Xbox exclusive in a couple of years. That would mean, at least for Sony, they would want to have their own shooter up on the platform, which again I don't see the use of, but you gotta fill the COD void, fill the void that's gonna be left by COD. What's a COD void? But yeah, just a very surprising statistic. Big up to PlayStation. And I think, yeah, that's about it this week. I'm actually just scrolling right now on my notes to see if I had anything else. I think that was everything I had. Very, very, very slow week. But yeah, look out for the playthrough on my channel. 6 May and 7 May. So 6 May will be part 1, 7 May will be part 2. The video essays will also be coming on the channel. And apologies for those listening on Spotify, because I am uploading this to Spotify, but it's still mainly like a YouTube focused thing. So I will still have mainly like YouTube discussions and stuff like that. But hopefully with time, we'll be able to evolve the discussions into more than just like these news segments. Because again, on my second channel, I used to do like just daily vlog discussion type videos. And I stopped doing them because I figured maybe I could do like a once a month kind of thing with like a Q&A attached to it. So we'll see how it goes. I may just throw that onto this and add it as like discussion topics and everything, even though it's going to be this week in PlayStation. So essentially it's always going to be gaming focused. So but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this little ramble of mine. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay dangerous, stay blessed, and peace out. Video essays and stuff, but in the meantime right now, my monitor, because I'm used to my camera being on my monitor, but I moved the camera.
Stop right there! Okay. We're not. This is your fault. This is nobody's fault, Henry.
If you're really like into some nature shit, on weekends you can always